Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Better podcast. I'm your host DD, and joining me today once again is my friend and your Aidan. On this episode, we'll be talking about the Toronto GP. So let's grab some chai, take a seat, ready your opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Vedan, the win for Scott Dixon finally comes this season, and he has equaled Mario Andretti's record of 52 wins, all-time wins in IndyCar, which is the second most, just behind AJ Foyt, who I think sits at 67. So, still not a threat to that record, but a big day for both Chip Ganassi Racing and Scott Dixon himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Matching Mario Andretti's record,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
yeah, being you know having the second most wins in IndyCar is no small feat. Sorry, and Scott Dixon has obviously he is already a IndyCar legend, but right now he has established himself in the IndyCar Hall of Fame even more, and it's just incredible to witness that in live. We obviously saw Lewis Hamilton break all those Michael Schumacher records, right? And to once again see these things happen, it's great.
Absolutely. And it's no surprise that Scott Dixon won. The only thing missing from his Arsenal this season was his qualifying performance. He could never really break into the top five during qualifying, which led him to start a lot lower down the grid. And he always finished like in the top 10 very consistently, but he just couldn't get onto the podium places or win the race as frequently as all of us would have liked him to.
Yeah,
However,
absolutely.
he qualifies second. Uh, what was it like? It was very close to Colton Herta. I'm forgetting the number, but and then simply takes the win away from Colton Herta. It never seemed like he was under pressure from Colton at any point in the race. He managed that gap, 2 second gap, beautifully throughout the race, and just managed his tires like he usually does, and brought it home without any issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a perfectly executed race from Scott Dixon, and it was the perfect race to get to match Andretti for that record, right? If you have a haywire race and you get a random win to get that record, it's another thing. But if you race perfectly and just execute it to perfection and get that win to match that record, it's it's one of those subtle things which feel great
Yeah,
apart from
yeah,
the record itself,
absolutely.
obviously.
Absolutely. And obviously, Chip Ganassi Racing, they've been in the news for a very different reason all throughout last week. And it's been a tumultuous time, but also a very exciting time for us IndyCar fans. And that is because we don't know Alex Palo's future. Chip Ganassi is still adamant that Alex Palou will be racing with him in 2023. Uh, but it seems that Alex Palou does not want to be racing with Chip Ganassi and instead wants to be racing with McLaren in IndyCar in that third car. Um, so very interesting what happened there. But Alex Palou put in a great performance, to keep himself in the championship fight. Went from what P22 to P6 this weekend, and some
Yes.
of the moves that he put in were just scintillating to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the last couple of years, obviously, Alex has been the most consistent driver. He won the championship last season through his consistency, and he's in the championship fight this season through his consistency. So it's exciting times ahead. Obviously, not for Chip Ganassi because they somehow botched their relationship with Alex. I don't know what happened. We obviously don't know what happened behind the scenes, but
What
for
it necessarily doesn't have to be, that Chip Ganassi did something. It just seems that McLaren, like we talked about in our F1 podcast
yeah,
last week, and it just seems McLaren and Zach Brown have been able to leverage that F1 seat next to Lando Norris really well across the paddock. Colton, Alex, like Colton Herta is in the TPC program. Alex Palau has been a part of his contract says that he will also be a part of the TPC program. Um, And obviously, Alex Palou was, he raced in junior Formula in Europe before moving to the US. So clearly, it is a it is a rekindling of his F1 dream that he had, which I don't want to say he gave up on, but he definitely put aside. And it seems like, this is the path forward for Alex Palou, whether that's, making a long-term relationship with McLaren and IndyCar, or being able to move to F1 in a few years' time. So definitely, that carrot has been dangled, and Alex Palou has decided to take it, in my opinion. But clearly, Scott Dixon and the likes, they haven't been very impressed with how Alex Palou has um, handled his contract talks with Chip Ganassi and so on. And there have been a lot of comments flying around uh, the paddock about how these contract extensions usually work. Usually they're mutual, but it seems, that Chip Ganassi has the option on Alex Palou the way he's been talking about it. And it's up to the lawyers, it seems, what's going to happen. However, I want to point out Felix Rosenquist has come out and said a few things. And one of the things he said is that he wants to stay in IndyCar with McLaren. So that is definitely a conflict of interest amongst the drivers that McLaren is putting together in their racing family.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like talking about McLaren, obviously Daniel Ricciardo has, confirmed himself for 2023, and
Yep.
out of the two new drivers McLaren has signed, Rossi and Palou, I think both of them would rather race in IndyCar than Formula E, right? So, and now Felix Rosenquist as well, because with that P3 in Toronto, he has said, he has made an announcement that, listen, I'm still here. I'm still with McLaren. I still have a contract and I still want to race in IndyCar. So it's going to be a three-way fight for that one or two IndyCar seats, right?
Well,
And
it's not just a three-way fight, Vedant. Let me remind you that there isn't just Alexander Rossi, Pato O'Ward, Felix Rosenquist, and Alex Palou. There is also Colton Herta, who's a part of the TPC program. You might be racing for McLaren family, but Zach Brown is a businessman, and only the fastest man is guaranteed a spot on his F1 team.
yeah,
And then you also have Jehan Daruvala, who's been testing for McLaren again, which is great news. So a lot
yeah,
of
well,
people in the running, and Zach Brown is on fire.
yeah. I try to keep the Formula One seat aside. I was just talking about, for 2023,
Oh,
the
okay, okay, yeah,
IndyCar
yeah,
seat and the Formula E seat, because we haven't heard any driver signings for the Formula E side of McLaren, right? So
yeah.
that's going to be what would be interesting, because I think Ricardo will stay for 2023 in Formula One, or so he says. Let's see how that goes.
Absolutely. I was gonna say something, I'm blanking now, but yeah, driver market thing has been really interesting in IndyCar. We said IndyCar silly season has proper kicked off last week, and it's also made the other teams think. Regardless of where Alex Palou races, obviously if he races with Chip Ganassi, they will give him a good car. He's had success with them, even though the relationship will eventually, you know, deteriorate over time because Alex Palou obviously doesn't want to be there, and he will be forced if he's forced to stay there. It's not gonna make anyone happy. However, now the question is, who is the next big talent for Chip Ganassi Racing, or let's say even Penske? And Rinus VK is one in question, because obviously Kyle Kirkwood is moving to Andretti. So it seems that Rinus VK might be able to move to a bigger team like Chip Ganassi or Penske soon, given Alex Palou is moving out and really shaking up a few things in the IndyCar paddock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
I mean,
even David
Rinus V.
Malukas, who had a pretty good qualifying this weekend.
David Malukas, but I think we can also throw, uh, you know, our rookie standings leader, uh, sorry,
But I
Christian
think
Lungard
Christian
in the
Lundgaard has a
mix.
contract with Reha Letterman Landing and Racing for more than a year, I
Okay,
believe.
okay. Well, that's sorted then. But I think with the way Christian Lungard is racing this season, the consistency he's been showing, he hasn't done anything Kyle Kirkwoody. Like he has not had his peaks or his DNFs and all that, but he has been consistent. And as always, in IndyCar, consistency keeps you in the hunt, right? So that was great. But talking about the the Rehal racing team, sorry, I forgot the full name. Graham Rahal, P4, after such a long time. And how did that come about? They brought in dampers from 2007 or 8. Interesting. What happened there?
I'm not sure. I didn't really cover that story over the weekend. I wasn't able to follow it. But it's definitely
Okay, yeah,
interesting
I
to
mean,
see.
I just read it, and somehow they were like during testing they brought out old dampers to just check where what their progress was over the years, and something clicked in that car. So sorry, obviously with that, Graham Rahal P4, Christian Lungard P8, a great weekend for uh,
RLL.
the team. Yeah, RLL, sorry, once again. And it seems as though their their woes and self doubt from from the first half of the season may finally go away, and they may perform once again.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Um, but let's talk about the championship leader, Vedant. Another great performance. I think from P9 to P5 this weekend, keeping himself in the lead. But another thing that I want to point out, and Jack Benyon posted this on Twitter, and that is how much closer the championship fight would have been had we not have, if we didn't have 50 points. Sorry, not 50 points, double points for the Indy 500 race.
Yeah.
We would have had, is it Will Power and Marcus Ericsson equal on points for the championship lead? And then we would have 11 points between the leaders and P4, whereas I think there's over 40 points right now. So, I mean, obviously, he was just pointing it out for. I'm not sure what his views are exactly on the double point system for the Indy 500, but he does make a great point that we could have had at least this year a much closer championship. However, it's just great to see Marcus Ericsson keep his lead so far, and hopefully, at least he's my favorite for the championship win this season now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think uh, the race.com came out with a driver ranking so far this season, and Marcus Ericsson was, I think, top. He was first or second or something like that, and it just goes on to show that the season he has had so far. Yes, he is in the lead with the Indy 500 win, but he has been consistent. Even with a few DNFs, he has been consistent and in the top 5, top 7 a lot.
Yeah, I think Marcus Ericsson replied to Jack Benyon's tweet also, which said, yeah, I'm in the lead because I won the Indy 500, but I also lost a lot of points. Or he pointed out when he crashed out from P3, I think, early in the season. I think I was at like St. Petersburg maybe when he crashed
Yeah,
out. So
yeah,
yeah, he did point out that too, and he's like, there's highs and lows, I guess, and but obviously, great to see Marcus Ericsson up there. It's been a difficult weekend for Pato Award. Another championship hopeful, especially after last season. But nothing doing for him either. The Chevy engines haven't been the most reliable uh, on road courses, especially. So kind of sad to see Pato Award falling back a little bit.
yeah, and but I mean, it was a very underwhelming weekend for Pato. There was nothing of highlight we could see. Obviously, whenever uh, you know with each weekend, Pato sometimes has a good race, sometimes has a good qualifying or something like that. But this weekend he was nowhere and was beaten by his teammate in both the standings, in qualifying as well as the race. So it may be, he obviously he'll bounce back from that, but it was a great dent in his championship fight.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting something, Vedant. But please remind me if there's something about today.
Uh, well, we have talked about more or less everything that went on, but Yeah, I
Oh, we didn't
guess
talk about Tatiana
Alexander
Calderon.
Rossi.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh yeah, Alexander
Yeah,
Rossi. Yeah,
Alexander
I
Rossi.
think a lot of people pointed out that Alexander Rossi, obviously Felix Rosenqvist and Alexander Rossi came together on track, and something similar had happened with Grosjean earlier. Now Alexander Rossi had a very strong reaction to the coming together with Roman Grosjean, but his reaction was a lot more subdued and respectful almost, with regarding his collision with Felix Rosenqvist, which put him out of the race. And it's very interesting to see, Alexander Rossi, the way he is going about managing his relationship with his new teammates, almost you could say. We know Alexander Rossi is hot-headed, but it was quite weird to see him, not be angry and be a little bit more respectful towards future teammates.
Yeah, but I think Alexander Rossi did accept his mistake, sort of. Not his mistake, but the error which caused the collision, because which caused his DNF more so. Because I think that's exactly what happened last weekend when Alexander Rossi just lost the grip on his steering wheel through that
Yeah,
when
that is good in itself, to see a driver let go of a steering wheel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it has something to do with IndyCar not having power steering, so
Yeah,
the movement and the oscillations are much higher than, say, in Formula One. So that's something to, I mean, but it was very strange to see and very interesting to see, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, 2 weekends now for Alexander Rossi that has happened, and let's see. I mean, hopefully it won't happen again, but if somehow a car makes contact with him, it seems as though he's at risk of losing that grip, you know 2 weekends.
yeah. One other thing that I want to mention was the fact that AJ Foyt couldn't field Tatiana Calderon's car in this race, I believe, because
Yeah,
issues, which is really sad to see, especially since she is the only female driver on the grid. Um, and hopefully, they'll be able to put something together for the upcoming races and have something better in place for next season so that this does not happen again.
yeah, and I mean, sorry, my bad. She's having a I mean, she's having a good season as well. It's not like she's having a bad season where she's finishing last all the time, right? She's having a good season. She is ahead of, or at almost at par with her rookie teammates as well. So it's I'm forgetting the name, but
Kyle
yeah,
Kirkwood.
yeah, Kyle Kirkwood and I think Dalton Kellett or someone.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Dalton Kellett, yeah.
yeah, it's still great. I mean, it's sad to see, but hopefully with the season she's been having, I think they can put something together.
Yep, hopefully. I guess that's about it for this episode. Thank you, Vedant, for joining me once again. It's been a pleasure talking IndyCar with you, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.